I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Dineo.
Present.
Vice Chair Ramirez.
Present.
Commissioner Abad.
Here.
Commissioner Bugley.
Present.
Commissioner Leva.
Present.
Commissioner McBride.
Here.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you come in. Commissioner McCormick.
Here.
Quorum's present.
Thank you. Number 2 on the agenda, public comments and discussion. Let's precede this with our DA will not be present physically, but we have had a conversation. And as long as we are mindful of speaking one at a time, particularly the commissioners, we can go ahead with the meeting. So, okay, everybody on board?
Okay.
Good, all right. So you, the public, are invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Cultural Commission. In order for the members of the public to participate, that's you, in the Cultural Commission's consideration of an agenda item, the commission strongly encourages members of the public to comment on an item during the item itself, subject to a 3-minute limit. No action may be taken on a matter raised under public comment unless the item has been specifically included on the agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Okay, at this point, welcome to you. Is there anything anyone wants to come up? Good. Nice.
Thank you. Hi, Sharon Ross, Capital City Arts Initiative, and we have a guest. Last week, CCII has our Creative Spark exhibition up in the Brick, and it's with work by 3 dozen high school students from Carson, Dayton, Douglas, and Pioneer High Schools. And when we hung the show, the Arts Initiative Board had decided we were going to award a scholarship based to a senior who's going on to some sort of education. And the work was so strong that we were able to gather 2 more scholarships from the Dineo family and from Cindy Steve Brenneman and from Southwest Gas, all combined. So we had 3, and then CCI members. So we had 3 scholarships, and we had an outside juror, and the work was, it's beautiful work. So one of our scholarship winners is here, Jane Figler from Carson High, and she came in, and she had her senior project. We had room for to do her senior project. So I'm going to introduce Jane.
Hi, my name is Jane Fleekler. I won a scholarship. I'm going to UNR this fall. I'm going to study art and history. Yeah.
Marvelous.
So I hope you get a chance to see the show. I thought Monica was going to be here. She's from, Monica's here. Can we have a second to introduce her?
Yeah. For those of you, if you've not been to the Brick, it's a beautiful show. You wouldn't believe they're teenagers.
So this is Monica Reyes, and she has a ceramic sculpture. It's a head. It's beautiful. It's right inside the front door. And her teacher said it was the first time she did anything like that.
Yep.
And it was an award-winning piece. So Monica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Monica. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you.
So are there any questions of our award winners? So what we will do with their scholarships is when they get enrolled and give us their student numbers, then we'll send the checks to the schools. So it eliminates summer fun, but it'll help pay for books and tuition.
And that's good.
So we're delighted. I hope you get a chance to see the exhibition.
Where will you be continuing your education?
Right now I'm not too sure, but I am gonna start at WNC.
Okay.
Well, congratulations, and if there's anything you need, I'll be there waiting for you.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Yeah.
thank you
wonderful.
very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to both of you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Sorry that I was a
coming. It
little
was
late.
really nice. You gals are terrific. Good luck.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Darla Bear. I run Wired Wednesday Digital Arts, and historically, we have had meetings every month at the end of the month, but we are shifting things around a little bit and hoping to encourage more of our youth and adults to become filmmakers. One of the things that we do, in fact, the main thing we do, is the short film competitions. Yeah, you're nodding your heads. You know about this. This is good. I'm so glad. We have 3 different competitions a year. One is in February, January, February. It's for a romance film, and these are all short films, under 10 minutes. Then in July, we do the citywide short film competition, and that is multiple genre. And then in October, we do Carson Creepy. So obviously, the romance one is romance, citywide is multiple genre, and then Carson Creepy is horror films. We also have, and this is our 3rd year, Jukebox International Film Festival. This is running through Film Freeway, which means filmmakers seek out competitions and festivals online at Film Freeway. The films that we are seeking are all music-based. Last year, our 2nd year, and we've been working with Jazz and Beyond, Mile High Jazz, and Ellie and David have been really wonderful helping us out. Last year, we had, well, at least 3 of the films brought their directors and the subject of their films. And with those, we had bands playing all around town. It was it was really a blast. Many of the subjects of the films also did classes in the elementary schools and high school, and it was great. So we're hoping to be doing a similar thing this year. Excuse me. I have left some posters on the table in the back, so if anybody would like to take some posters and get them up, that would be really, really awesome. Now, this film festival, we want an audience. We really are seeking an audience because we moved this into the community center. It's a large space, and we do want lots of people to come. The films are fabulous, so if you can encourage people to come, that would be great. So the last thing that I want to say about Wired Wednesday is we are tentatively doing some workshops prior to the films that Carson City Classic Cinema Club does each month. So we are hoping to get a broader audience, more filmmakers started in the field, and share our skills. Any questions?
So when is the jukebox event?
Jukebox
Again?
is August 20th to the 22nd.
Okay.
That is during the week. It's also during Jazz and Beyond. Last year, we started at 9 a.m. Bad idea. Carson City has to work. So we've changed it to noon to midnight the first 2 days and noon to 10 p.m. There are multiple sections of films. We have documentaries in short format and feature length. We have narrative films, and we have music videos. We hope to also have many different workshops right there in the Bonanza Room at the community center. I'm hoping, and I haven't really confirmed this yet, but I'm hoping to have how to make a trailer for your film, lighting, sound, a lot of different subjects.
Thanks, Darla. It sounds really exciting.
Thank you.
And can you tell us again how to get a hold of or how to find out more information about your organization?
Of
like
course.
a website or, yes, thank you.
WiredWednesday.org is where you can find information. You can also find us Wired Wednesday Digital Arts on Facebook, and you can call Darla at 830-7939. That is the information number. Thank you.
Thanks, Darla.
Hi, Rhonda Aubin with the Carson City Classic Cinema Club. I snuck up here because we're partnering on a few things, and I wanted to share that with you. As she said, combining their workshops with our films, maybe even coming to a point where we actually merge. Our organization actually decided not to do any large-scale events like the Back to School Bash and things that we did last year. We decided we'd rather focus our time and our money on the kids in the schools. With that, we've been going to Mark Twain Elementary School whenever they have an early out and they need something for the kids to do. We take some supplies and a project and give them something new to try. Also, we've been working with the GATE students, along with Darla, to help them produce their own talk show, It's Your School. With the same format as her It's Your City show, we've been teaching the students to use the cameras, the lights, the microphones. They're doing the booking of the guests, they're interviewing them, and even editing. It's been a lot of fun, really, really great kids. So we hope to expand all of those programs perhaps to another school next year. Baby steps. One school at a time. I even asked the students last time we were there, given the choice, do you want me to come back here next year? Do you want me to share this with another school? Or do you want me to maybe go back and forth? And most of them said, we'd love to have you, but we understand that it would be valuable for other students. And they kind of came to the conclusion that maybe every other month I go back and forth. So that was just a really rewarding experience. So as for the Classic Cinema Club, I have our 2019 brochure. I'll leave a few of these back there. And we do have our annual fundraiser, the Hollywood Gala, coming up next month. Tickets are on sale on our website at, what is it? Classic Cinema. No, it's ccclassiccinema.org. And I think that's all I've got.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Sounds exciting.
Any questions?
Thank you for providing our students that opportunity. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Thank you.
They're a lot of fun to work with.
I bet.
The first time I went in there, I took a bag of paint and a bag of rocks and said, here. And they had a ball.
That's cool.
So it doesn't take much. And they get to try something they might not otherwise try. So it's really been a rewarding experience.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Any other public comments, issues? Okay, agenda item number 3 is possible action, the adoption of the agenda as has been presented.
We're going to follow the agenda as it's presented. And just for the record, we're joined by Todd Reese, who's going to serve as our DDA tonight. Thank you, Todd, for.
Thanks, Todd. Okay. Item 4, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the Cultural Commission FY 18-19 annual report and FY 19-20 work plan for presentation to the Board of Supervisors, and it's been in your packet. I hope you've had an opportunity to peruse it. The mic is open.
So I just want to start by thanking the commission for attending the special meeting. Thank you, Tamar and Todd, and of course our audience here. We have a lot of work to cover this meeting, but it's all good work, and it, for me personally, it sort of feels like almost a first summit, because I think we're going to have a lot of good progress by the end of this meeting. Commissioner Dineo, what we're going to do is any edits to either your portion or my portion, I'm going to submit them by this week's end to get on the next Board of Supervisors agenda, which is going to be May 2nd. And as per CMTC 2.41, we're obligated to make that presentation to the board 1st of May. We're obligated to submit it by 1st of May, so it'll be submitted by 1st of May. We're presenting live at their meeting May 2nd. So what I might suggest, and this is the first time that we're doing this collectively, last year Commissioner McBride did this. This is going to be the first time where we sort of, I show you my draft, you show me your draft, it's shown to the public, and then we take that first step together. So Would you be comfortable reading your portion, and then I'll go over mine?
You mean right here, right now?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, sure. If that's okay with everyone, sure. Okay, it's always the first sentence that's the toughest. You get that out, and then you can just go for it. Okay, this is the annual report prepared on behalf of the commission. Commissioners provided input and a consensus on issues addressed in this report. The Carson City Culture Commission Board now stands at 7 members, representing an expanded age and gender diversity, artistic interests, and public member representation. Attendance at regularly scheduled board meetings exceeds the 75% attendance requirement. Board members have increased participation in community artistic events, celebrated the commission's 10th anniversary, and provided advocacy for many arts programs throughout the Carson City community and beyond. Public attendance at board meetings has increased, thank you very much, with several new artists and cultural organizations in regular attendance. Arts and culture community organizations continue to grow. We are experiencing a significant increase in requests from the RAC special events and exhibit grant funds. We are grateful for the opportunity to make recommendations on the $25,000 RAC funding for artistic and cultural events. We are concerned that with the increasing numbers of qualified applicants, we will need to address the need for increased funding. We need your input and hope to discuss this further this year. We are highly supportive of Mark's strong efforts to reach all sections of the Carson community. He has brought inclusion of Carson City's diverse cultural and artistic talent to the broader state organizations. He is representing Carson City arts and culture in several other states and national organizations. He has successfully worked to increase awareness of our diverse and talented artists, our schools, nonprofits, the Native American community, and the WNC art programs, as well as cultural events from the Latino cohort. His report will address this work to date. As Mark begins his 3rd year of his contract, board members are impressed with his abilities to
Commissioner
bring...
Daneo, can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
Are we on page 5 of the agenda that I submitted to each one of you up there?
No. 4.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
4. Okay? Mark begins the 3rd year of his contract. Board members are impressed with his abilities to bring our artistic community to the forefront. The transition of Mark's position to the city has been smooth and much appreciated. This has been very positive for his interactions with a myriad of other city, state, and national artist organizations. Carson City earns the spotlight, unquote, at the Reno Tahoe Airport is testament to the work of many artists and groups. We are grateful for Mark's efforts. He accomplished an enormous amount as a one-person department. Along with all the other arts programs, he spearheaded the Arts Advocacy Day at the legislature. Clearly, he needs additional day-to-day support. As we look at 2019 direction and goals, we realize Mark's contract with the CTA and its sunset clause, time clock, is ticking. We need his expertise. Board members want to have extra time to discuss and define where we are headed and how to get there. A retreat is suggested for sometime in July. The public is invited. We will have the policies and procedures by July. This year, the focus will include business and local community financial support. Business, quote, champions, unquote, financial support and development is key this year. We need permanent funding to secure our growth of arts and culture. Perhaps a sustainable mechanism in addition to the 1% hotel tax from the CTA can be secured. This could be matched from business financial support and the city at 1% to continue cultural development for grant applications and day-to-day assistance. Removal of the sunset clause would provide a safeguard for the arts and encourage cultural destination visits to Carson City. The board will consider establishing ad hoc committees to assist Mark. 1, Business and Finance, 2, Public, and 3, Roundtable discussions, etc. We thank the members of the Board of Supervisors for your support of arts and culture in Carson City. Do you want me to read the PSs, or do you care? It's a PS to thank
Go ahead.
Sharon Ross and the CCAI volunteers for the beautiful artistic works and education they provide to the Carson City community and the arts. Congratulations to Sharon as the recipient of the Nevada Humanities Award Champion of the Humanities, which will be presented at the Museum of Art in Reno. Also, Mark Salinas will receive the Nevada Arts The Rising Star Award. This is the first time Carson City has won these two awards in 25 years.
Thank you. There was a little variance in that. I think that was a first a version. What we submitted on the agenda publicly was a little bit different, but it was just small grammar stuff. I think at this time, before I go into my end of it, if there's any other additions that the commission wants to make, I believe that commissioners had an opportunity to send some thoughts to Commissioner Dineo in advance of writing that, penning that report. Any last looks, they say, in the film industry? Okay, anything? You can think about it, and I'll continue.
Okay.
So what I'm doing this year is presenting some infographics on my end. Last year, I also read a report to the Board of Supervisors. And what I wanted to do was make an explanation without any art reference to the overview of the Department of Arts and Culture, not only to provide clarity and learning, here we are up on the screen, about my strategy, but also to establish parameters and placement of where the department falls within the city's own strategic plan. So here you'll see three core components. These are ongoing, essential administrative tasks: creation, education, relation. Creation, the building of the infrastructure, that's the identity of what we're speaking about, whether it's my position, whether it's the commission, whether it's the Arts and Culture Master Plan, whether it's the city, whether it's us as a capital. And a building infrastructure is actually an ongoing need to reflect the growing needs of a community, right? Education, promoting the assets. So here we have is where we deliver the information of our artists, our art collection, arts organization, cultural organizations, events, grants, relation, activating the community. And this is actually building the awareness of our community partners, establishing new partnership throughout the community. This is also letting the community know about any awards, honors. It's alerting them to our inclusive practices. And it's an opportunity to share historic mile markers. So within those three core essentials, then you have the sustainability, the programming, and communications. So as you see, there's, aside from the title up there at the top, this is not arts lingo, arts language at all. This is, I think, something that any department can read into and understand. On the next page, we have 22, next two pages, we have 22 examples of efforts in each one of these three categories. These stats were collected at the end of March, so in order to get this into the system, so a lot of these stats are even higher, but this is what we're delivering. These two pages did not exist a year ago. In 1 year, these are the essential highlights. And so each one of these fits into a category of either creation, relation, or education. I want to go through a couple of them. Of course, by CCMC, we need to speak of our attendance. We have 133% attendance. How does that happen? Well, we have 6 scheduled meetings. We have 2 special ones that we've had 100% attendance on. This one tonight and the redevelopment scoring last year. Our audience increase has gone up, 175% increase in our redevelopment grants. Went from 4 to 11. Yesterday was a deadline for next fiscal year, and we have 7 applicants. There's a reason for that little drop, and I can explain that later on in our discussion, but it's still very strong. Also, you'll see mentioned is 1 new sibling. We try to have fun with this. Lyon County Township of Silver City proclaimed Carson City as a sister city in the arts. Commissioner McCormick has helped us build that relationship. And then you also have, infrastructure such as a website which lists our documents, where we meet, who you are, who I am, what we do, as well as an opportunity to post press releases and photographs of our events. On the next page, you'll see at the top, new public art policy. We are going to be reviewing half of those chapters tonight. The first draft, it was essential to me in order to keep my commitment to the Board of Supervisors that we had some progress on last year's work plan to achieve that. Just in the 1 year that I've been here, 9 municipal departments I've been able to interface with. And of course, that's showing how arts and culture elevates and how it can elevate other municipal departments in their day-to-day activities beyond something hanging on the wall or something on a pedestal. And one example of that, of course, was during National Arts and Humanities Month, which was August of 2018. I reached out to 4 different departments and sort of uncovered the arts and culture, the hidden arts and culture, if you will, that was in that department. Fire, senior center, cooperative extension, and from that, over 5,000 views. It includes artworks that I personally installed. It includes opportunities that Carson City has had to step outside of Carson City and represent ourselves, such as at the 24/7 here Reno Tahoe Airport show, which actually comes down next week. And then just recognizing state and national recognition. On the next page, this is a copy of last year's work plan, and in red you'll see the status. So the dedicated priority in completing the policy and procedures, I'm putting that as partial completion. Dedicated priority in proposing amendments to the creation of the Cultural Commission. If you remember, last year we from a body that met 4 times a year to 6 times a year and having a full-time person with the onus of managing it. We took a closer look with the DA's office upon the language of the charter. We did some adjustments, a little chiropractor crack, and I believe we are following now that charter and having great representation as well. Another 18-19 work plan was creating a vibrant community on local, regional, state platforms that we could cite the NEA True Grit Show. We could cite the local paint, sip, and chip with the State Museum. We could cite the Reno Tahoe Airport Show. Continuing to provide a public forum. That's, I think, in the boost of attendance in our audience here. That's also having access to on our city website to get involved with the arts, carson.org/AC. Continuing outreach to underserved populations and youth. You recall Zette Gold was here. She's a lightning rod for youth. She did a 10-day residency with the Boys and Girls Club, expanding representation throughout our community with other cultures. And it's interesting to note that I guess our interest in inviting the youth, a younger demographic, to work with us has also rubbed off on some other organizations. CCAI, Sharon, next month we're going to be greeted by their newest board member, who is a student at WNC. And I know that the Nevada Artists Association is looking to dedicate a gallery wall. Tell me, Fred, if I'm going to massacre this, to exhibit high school students or youth art. They're in discussion stages of that. Yeah. And of course, the ongoing promotion of our redevelopment allocations. So the work plan for 1920 is going to be finalizing those last chapters of the public art policy, and we'll know what those chapters are later on. There's an index. The target date is fall 2019. Create a cultural commissioner retreat. That was something that was brought up at our last meeting. I have here the Reno Arts and Culture Commission bylaws. So they've done this before, and we can take a look at this, see if we want to take a look at this. We had a city staff retreat not too long ago, and the DA's office said if we wanted to take a look at if any commission wanted to take a look at their bylaws, now was the time to do it. But also, that would be an opportunity to sort of, for us to press the refresh button and see how the commissioners want to get more involved. Manifest common understanding of how 1% for the arts in Carson City equals 1% community vitality for Carson City. So going forward, I think after looking at those 22 stats, that the 1% for art really isn't 1% for community vitality. It's an opportunity to build community relationships, to involve people on both sides of this room, and clearly outside our region as we have been doing. And I think that's really exciting. And I think to advocate to retain the success that we have, it's easy to understand and communicate about how a community is affected in the ways that we're doing it outside of arts language. You know. Finally, communicate long-term sustainability options, as I just mentioned, among Carson City government, Carson City Cultural Commission, the Culture and Tourism Authority to retain and develop department successes of last year. Bear with me, we're almost done. So that was local. And this year I'm attaching 3 more pages that reflect state and national. And there's so much effort, of course, that I put forward on local level to collect data, interpret statistics, and record changes, that there's no opportunity for me to do the same on state and national levels. It's not my thing. I cannot speak to it as strongly because I haven't been a part of making those numbers, but it's important to have in front of us. And so what we have here are some statistics that the State Arts Council, Nevada Arts Council, and in the governor's office has collected, and these statistics are what we communicate to DC at our Arts Advocacy Day to our state elected officials. 75% of people believe arts help students perform better academically. On the next page, you'll see the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis reports arts and cultural production contributed $7 billion and is 4.7% of Nevada's GDP, contributing to 41,308 jobs. So I did a little Google search, and that is the population of Fernley, Elko, and Ely combined. So imagine those 3 cities all being active in jobs directly related to arts and culture. So if we start speaking to each other on those terms, then that's quite a major force. It's easy to imagine. Finally, on the last page, 10 reasons to support the arts. Americans for the Arts puts this out. They are the organization that puts together Arts Advocacy Day, and I attend their annual conventions. Art strengthens the economy, sparks creativity and innovation, drives the creative industries, improves individual well-being. There's a lot of great statistics there that people can take home and read. Those pages are my end of the annual report. I plan on just going into detail. I'm going to go in the same amount of detail for that meeting. And I guess this is the opportunity. We also have public comment at the end of this, so the public can weigh in if there's anything that they feel might need to be mentioned. But, I was planning on taking edits at this moment so I can get it into to the system by the end of the week. So I'm open for comments or suggestions.
Heard that. Any comments? Any Thing you want to add?
I just want to say that having read thousands of hours of board packets, this is a nice, creative presentation representative of this organization and what you do. So I think it was a nice approach.
There too. Anyone in the public like to make a comment since you've heard and seen what we've presented to you? Because now's the time. Sharon?
Hi, Sharon Ross. Do you want arts people there at the May 2nd board meeting, Board of Supervisors in the room? Just looking at the Board of Supervisors?
I think on May 13th, May 13th is our next regular meeting. It's also a regular meeting of the CTA, and their meeting starts at 4, and I'm already on their agenda to present the annual report and the budget to them. Same content as what I'm showing to you. That might be a good time to sort of start at that level. It's a public meeting. You can show up if you want, but this is going to be the first time that I'm presenting it to the CTA, and as they're in charge of that, they're the first step to taking a look at that sunset clause and what they want to do with it. It might be a good first step to have grassroots supports there. I'm open to suggestions.
I think it's a good idea. The more, the better.
I think it's important that you be there because it's an all-new board who does not really quite fully understand, where we've come and what we brought to the community. So I think it's important that that representation is there.
For the CTA.
Yep,
It's not that I want to go to another meeting,
I
but
know. I
but
know.
I sort of agree. I think we need to,
Yeah, I would agree.
thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, do we know where we will be placed on the agenda?
We don't know yet.
Okay. All right.
I think originally we were on this month's agenda, but the budget's that day, and sometimes annual reports, no matter what the department is, gets bumped. Yeah.
Okay. I, for one, think what you've put together is outstanding. It tells the story succinctly and in taste, and I think that's terrific.
Yeah, people like numbers and data and graphics. So good job. Yeah, no, that's definitely easier for people to grasp. The different, like a new sibling. That's a fun fact. Maybe not, earth shattering, but still they're probably not even aware of that. So yeah, good job in compiling all that, Mark.
Yeah. Well done. So we'll move on. Any public comments, it says here, I'm assuming there aren't any at this point. No one's up. Item number 5, discussion items only. Presentation and discussion of the Departments of Arts and Culture FY 1920 budget.
Do we need to move to approve the report as presented or no?
We didn't before, but,
Well, there's this in the packet though.
okay.
You are correct. There is a staff report. Thank you.
I'll
Thank
be
you for
happy
catching
to.
that. There's a staff report for possible action regarding.
I move to accept the Cultural Commission fiscal year 18-19 annual report and the fiscal year 19-20 work plan for presentation to the Board of Supervisors as presented.
Any comments? Okay, on the question?
At this point, the chair would ask all in favor.
Yeah. Oh, you're not going to do a roll call. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, so there you are, Mark, presentation of the budget.
Can I ask before you get started, are you presenting this at a formal meeting besides here? Like, or are you just going to be in budget meetings with city folks, like city officials? Or is this going to be presented elsewhere?
So this has already been presented at the open house, which was last week.
Okay.
This was part of my intro. So at this time last year is when I made the switch over to the city, which is a horrible time to make a switch to the city, I just learned, because by March, budgets are already in. If you recall, last year I had the CFO at the time come in and sort of give us all a sort of 101 about the finance and the procedure of that. So what I'm showing you was showed in this room at an open house meeting. Will also be shown to the CTA at that next meeting. Let me check my notes here. And because I'm operating upon a tax, that's why it was also included in that open meeting, although nothing's coming out of the general funds. So this is a more detailed version of the budget that I showed at the open house. And this is for presentation only. The organizational chart, of course, this is the same slide that I showed last year. This is the how I'm organized under the city manager's office. These are just some key principles here. Administers the Arts and Culture Master Plan, creates public art policy, serves as staff liaison to the Cultural Commission, conducts promotion and development of arts-based community vitality. A lot of these are taken out of my job description, and also the Arts and Culture Master Plan. So for Commissioner McBride, so the 1% is, the estimate of the 1% is delivered to me by the visitors, by the CTA's office, and I get that, they speak to the city manager's office, and they tell me what that 1% is going to be. It's an estimate. Last year's estimate was $207,000. This year's estimate, I was delivered that same number. From that, salary and benefits of myself is out of that 1%. It's deducted, which leaves us with which is termed as service and supplies. And the service and supplies is all operation costs. And on the next slide, I'm gonna break that down this year for the first time of how 1 year in doing this, how I've seen it manifest itself. So $73,647. The arrangement of the collection of this money is one where it accrues. It's not a use it or lose it. It rolls forward year to year. As we recall, the 1% in hotel, 1% for hotel, I think was initiated, March of 2016. I started here October 2016, so there was some revenue there when I started already. There are three categories here that service and supplies generate: operating supplies, professional supplies, and public art programming. So just as that 207 accounts for my salary and health insurance and sick days and that sort, it also supplies for everything from Staples to pens to Da Vinci outside. Operating supplies, I want to break this down for you because this includes the rent of my office at the Adams Hub. It includes national and regional conferences, office supplies, online services such as Photoshop, Acrobat, Venngage. These are online services to produce some of the infographics. Memberships such as the Downtown Business Association, the Reno Tahoe Territory, Americans for the Arts. There are some grants that I apply for that you have to be a member in order to apply for the grant. So these are what I'm coining as operating supplies. The conferences, because I work alone, these are opportunities for me to be among other professionals to discuss the items that we discuss in our meetings. Professional services, as a Department of One, I need help doing a lot. And so here you'll see CCAI listed, as well as photographers, videographers, graphic designers, art handlers, gallery services, advertisement. This is even where costs, if we brought in a speaker for our cultural commission or retreat, that would be professional services categories. We do have an IT department here in the city. Rachel does a fantastic job. You saw the video that she put together from the airport. But she can't take photographs and video at the same time. So for the airport show, I had to hire a photographer. I had to hire an art handler to help me for the True Grit show at WNC. It's these everyday things. You'll see CCAI there. And of course, Sharon Ross and her organization have been curating and installing and promoting artwork in 3 of our public buildings of Carson City. This room that we're in now, the courthouse, and the brick. I feel that CCAI's services are filling in something I cannot do alone. And so it was important to me to put them under professional services. So that service is on the record as a line item expense because it doesn't come free. Thank you for your service doing this, Glenn, you as well. Just as I would hire a photographer or a videographer to help me, just as I might pick up the phone and call a radio station and say, hey, can you plug some of our redevelopment grantees? I'm working with the city manager's office on putting together a 2-year contract for them to retain their services, curating, installing, and also putting parameters around their services that they've been doing for a long time. So spelling out the scope of work, spelling out their responsibilities and our responsibilities as one would have in a contract. So that's why they're listed there. Public art programming is.
I have a question on the
Yes.
professional services, one category, gallery services, what is that?
For the new gallery I put at City Hall, it was buying the aluminum track and the hanging hardware, going to Office Max and printing out the panels, adhesives to stick it to the walls. I apologize, for getting into detail, but it's not a lot of money, and so I really have to speak to where that $25 goes. Public art programming is the exciting part, and that's why we're all here. And so you'll see that the majority of the money is there. And there's 2 allocations there. I have Department of Arts and Culture and the Cultural Commission. As part of my job description, I'm tasked with putting together signature events, creating events. And so what you'll see there are some examples of what I foresee us doing in the next fiscal year. The Mayor's Art Awards, that's a collaboration with the Chamber that we're going to do in November for the first time. The City Hall Gallery, the expense of hanging the art, rotating it out, panels, fixtures. This past February, a lot of people kept asking me if we're going to do fashion films, fine art films at the museum again, so I'd like to maybe do that in 2020. The Paint Sip and Chip was an explosive event, first-time events. I don't think the Adams Hub has ever had that many people in there before. The Basin Range Exchange is something I'm going to be attending next week. It's put together by the Nevada Arts Council, and it's a real interesting pairing. They have 19 organizations throughout the state of Nevada, everyone from BIDs to individual artists to arts departments, municipal art departments. And what they're doing, we're all meeting in Tonopah for a day and a half, and they're going to partner rural and urban entities together so they can produce year-long programming. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know where we're going to land or who we're going to be partnered with. It could go either way. And then also out of that amount would be, sometimes the grants that I apply for require a one-to-one. If I win a $5,000 grant, sometimes they need at least $5,000 in kind or direct funds. Cultural Commission allocations is there just above 35,000, and this is just placeholders. This is nothing that the board, the body here has voted upon. These are suggestions, and eventually, later on this summer, I'd like to get to a point, as I just had mentioned, I feel like we sort of met that summit, we're at that summit now, is to run these as a lot of other municipal commission meetings I've attended, where the commission votes on what projects they want to do that fiscal year, and then this column of public art program is the content of our meetings. It's me giving updates on what you voted that you want to do. In there, you'll see DOT roundabout. I'm going to speak to that on the next agenda item. That's in regards to the South Carson project. Reno Airport installation, that's a top secret project. Just joking. They're really interested in working with us again, big time. Cultural Heritage Grant, that's also later on in our agenda item. That's the $8,000. An idea I have for Telegraph Alley, and then just $2,000 or so for unallocated.
Mark, where does the 25,000 from the RAC fit into any of this? Are you accounting for that in any of this?
It doesn't. That's really, I said that this department doesn't receive any money from general funds, and that's accurate. That 25,000 from general funds, from redevelopment, goes straight to arts organizations here. But let's take a look at that number, because 25,000 that's a third, more than a third there of what I'm operating with. And that sort of shows just how important that 25,000 is. Now imagine, and I know that, it's public open meeting, the redevelopment is not in the interest of, they're not interested in the business of doing events. That's been stated. If the commission wanted to pick that up, if that terminated, you can see here how drastically that 25,000 would affect our annual operating budget.
I was going to ask you, how realistic are those numbers? I mean, when I look at professional services, $10,000, I go, really? No, that's nowhere near in the ballpark of where you need to be in any one of those categories. So is our job to look at what we would like to suggest?
Well,
How can
I
you
take the fiscal
function?
responsibility of this very seriously, whether it's this amount or you could add several zeros. It's the same of importance to me, and of a serious matter. But the 73 is the 1% estimate of what that hotel tax is. There is a small amount that's in the reserve that's collecting. But what I really wanted to do was just show what that 1% in 12 months does. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that's a good representation, especially when you're presenting this to the CTA, so that they can see exactly where those dollars go and perhaps how that can grow.
And so looking at these numbers now also sheds a new light on that National Endowment of the Arts big read. That was a $14,000 grant. So that's quite a big number, looking at this. And I will say also, I just remembered that national conferences and regional conferences, I applied to professional development grants from our state arts agency. And pending where the conference takes place, that could be a grant between $650 and $350. So I have an upcoming annual conference, 3 conferences I'm going to. The last one I went to Washington, D.C., Arts Advocacy, the one next week in Tonopah, and one in June in Minneapolis. All 3 of those were partially funded through a grant that I wrote.
So in other words, you're stretching all these dollars, and that's maybe a point that needs to be made, is that you're using kind of bare bones money to do yeoman's work, along with matching grants to help supplement and the 25,000 redevelopment authority grants that we help that we recommend on allocations for, and that, okay, so that the money that you're actually spending may be more than the 1% allocation.
Well, I don't want to
The room tax.
get into that habit because,
Oh, right, I
Yeah.
understand, but that you're stretching
Yeah.
every dollar that you
and
can.
I think this is a really opportune time to have the juxtaposition of our annual report, this budget, and next month's redevelopment.
Right,
Boom, 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 all together. I think that gives the commission and the public a really good view at what we have here in front of us for the first time together.
right.
All those numbers and
Like
stats.
a sharp increase in your rent could really do a number on your budget.
Yeah.
And so I have another question for you, Mark. The public art program, you're right, that is why we're all here. And that's clearly the most interesting and intriguing category here. How much more could you handle? I mean, if this was double, would you be able to manage that?
No, I think, often in our meetings, I've joked saying, bring the popcorn, it's, Mark's Netflix, we're gonna see what Mark's been doing for the past 45 days, and it gets to a certain point where we're at today, and then we can talk about tomorrow. There's no possibility of me putting together this meeting every month, you know what I mean? There's just no possibility, because I'm also indebted to other municipal responsibilities, being under City Hall. So if you're asking, are you asking if I'm at maximum capacity?
No, what I'm saying is, let's, for instance, if we found a private source that could match this 47,000, just hypothetically, would you be able to handle that?
Well, the Director of Public Works made a comment to a DOT grant, and saying that, with money comes the necessary staffing to do stuff with that money.
There's a point where we're not going to be able to dance around that subject.
Agreed.
Yeah, we've mentioned that before, that increases, that a staffing increase would be necessary eventually.
And with that, several of you have been to my office. There's only one chair in my office. Yeah. So there, for the first time, there we have our budget. If the commission has any comments, any further comments, I'm happy to hear them, and then we can go to public comment.
I guess I would just ask you, do you feel comfortable with your budget and the way that it's been, the way that, the numbers that you're working with, and, how it's divided between your salary and benefits, and then, pretty much everything else? Do you feel, are you comfortable in working with those parameters right now?
It's part of, thank you for asking that question. It's part of a larger discussion about the 1%, the sunset clause, the longevity, the value of all those statistics, local, state, and federal statistics, the value of that to Carson City, to applicable boards here in the city. This is really the first time that I'm seeing the numbers myself like this. I'm certainly aware of the hours and the receding ponytail, but it's the first time I'm seeing this too. And so I'm also trying to troubleshoot and think of options to put on the table, just as that last page of the 1920 work plan was discussed among our three entities' ideas. Because retaining those statistics is going to require staff and funding. And it's the origin of those two things that I think all of us need to discuss, throw some ideas around.
Hearing none, we'll move on to 5B, the draft public art policy. Draft public art policy, chapters 1 through 6 for the municipality of Carson City.
Okay, thank you. So upon recommendation of the DA's office, I'm bringing this in front of the Cultural Commission first. Any recommendations or edits? This is going to be number one, this is going to be an evergreen document. Always being adapted and upgraded for the needs of Carson City. For our immediate purposes, I'm going to be collecting edits and recommendations from this body, but also putting this in front of some key departments, Public Works, Parks, Finance, City Manager's Office, off the top of my head, those four immediately, to see what their contributions are as far as editing, because those are going to be, they're listed in the art policies and procedures, and I'm going to need to see how the cog that we're building is going to fit into their machine. So, oops. If you want to take a look at the index, I believe, Commissioners, on your copy, I highlighted in yellow what's in red. And I'm introducing chapters 1 to 6 to 9 in draft form. Public art policy, this is something I've been working on in the past 2 years, reading municipal policies from Minneapolis, 3.6 million, to Crested Butte, Colorado, 1,600 people. And these documents are based upon they're specific, they're catered to each city, they're based upon population, government structure, both of elected and volunteer boards, funding, staffing, and even to a certain point, geography. What I think we'll do is just give this a general overlay, so the board and the public can discuss the general understanding of the content, the general order that it's presented, and at the very end, go into like grammar and spelling and that sort of stuff, if you please. Most of the policy here leans towards a static durable goods, and this was, expedited because, as I mentioned earlier, the South Carson DOT roundabout project at Stewart Street, there's going to be a roundabout there because of the Tiger Build Grant. None of those monies can be used per a federal called FAST law. None of that can be used towards artwork. And that was a brand new law that we actually spoke about in DC when I was up there for Arts Advocacy Day, that was put into place in 2017. So there might be funding available that the city has from that grant for lighting, electricity, landscaping, but for an actual durable sculpture, think of something, not so. Now, the question is, having looked at that budget, what are the options? Let's get to that later, but so that's the reasoning for that. That's, the project is well on its way. They had a 60% meeting the other day at the Adams Hub. So with that impending, I wanted to get at least this draft going, at least the major components of this draft that are going to be applicable to whether we do an invitational, whether we put out an RFP, an RFQ for an artist to make something from scratch, whether we buy something ready-made, whether I can catch certain fiscal year calendars for grants. There's a lot of moving elements in this. So most of the policy leans towards, static durable goods. And it's also to, this document is going to be on our website. It's free for the public. It's going to be educational for the public because I'm learning that a lot of the public doesn't recognize that a collection does not exist. A pre-existing collection doesn't exist. And that there isn't a catalog to choose from to decorate the lobby or one's office space, and that I'm not a shopper. That's what you call a private art consultant who goes to these fine arts fairs, who intermingles with, who's the liaison between collectors, private, public, and museums and galleries. That's not what I do. That's what our public process is to do. So while many of the items that you see now in City Hall are incoming loans, some of the parasols, some of these are just opportune moments to collect what, marketing or advertising moments to decorate our public spaces. So let's go through this. We have the intent, and there are three main documents I want to cite: the charter, which makes the Cultural Commission, tasking you with your duties; the Arts and Culture Master Plan, which is a 14-page to-do list, not a how-to, but a to-do. And also, I think it's important, I'm going to throw in there my job description as well, because there were three important documents that made at three different times, and they overlap in some manners. The vision here, this is a paragraph that I've actually used on one of the panels at the airport for our show. It just basically says that Carson City is a contemporary capital. And I think that what we're doing, while I think Carson City always takes nods to history, I think what we're doing now is creating history. And I want to put that in people's heads, that we can create history in what we do. The roles and responsibility, that's something we just saw in the budget, actually. I put just Parks and Recs and Library left and right of me, just to sort of give perspective of how other commissions and their staff liaison are situated. It speaks to a small description of all these entities that here in the city. You'll see under the Cultural Commission a public art panel. I know that we convened a public art panel early in my days here. After having written this, I feel it'll be the diesel version.
Yeah, on the Da Vinci, right?
Yeah. On Chapter 3, Public Art Collections, it defines the art. This is really, defining tangible, what art is. And I think that while the public art policy, these 6 chapters lean towards durable goods, it doesn't overlook that it could be poetry, it could be writing, it could be a performance as well. And it also states that public art, can occur on, at, near public buildings, streets, open spaces. Again, this is really an introductory document, not only to art policy procedures, but art in Carson City and how we want to direct that. Funding. This is the fun part. That's why FUN is in funding. The 1% Arts Revolving Fund is the official name of that 1% TOT for that I operate on. I also mentioned a CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, and general funds. I just list that for information only, but I state here that that is not in existence for us to draw from. But I think it's this is an educational document, so I want people to know some of the information I pulled from Crested Butte to Minneapolis, right?
But it's a possibility, right?
Certainly. Supplemental funding. So I listed city departments because that could be in kind, it could be storage, it could be Public Works helped me deliver the little library to Silver City. Parks and Rec allowing me to install the mannequins here in the lobby. There's lots of ways that I can lean upon other departments for staff time, uses of space, material sources, hardware, logistics, transportation, installation, those type of things. Grants, I spoke about a little bit tonight. Private sector, donations and contributions. These are gifts, not to be confused with donation of like artwork. That's spelled out later in the policy. Number 5, the placement of art. Basically broken down into 2 locations, public property and private property. And these are sort of, under public property, these are the 3 three features to keep in mind: the accessibility, visibility, the site capacity, and the compatibility. And so these will be very useful when we pull together a public art panel to ask questions that we haven't been asking ourselves about when we choose a site. We have to consider theft, we have to consider weather, we have to consider the pedestrian right-of-way, traffic flow, ADA compliance. Just in our light introductory meetings regarding the roundabout, what was for discussion was, should this be an opaque surface? Should there be negative space so people can actually see through it? Do we want it to be so detailed that we have people crossing the street to look at it up close? I'm thinking not in a roundabout. So maybe something that can be consumed from a distance, something that's illuminated at night, all the little details. I also mentioned private property because under one of the funding mechanisms, the CIP Capital Improvement Project, those are ordinances that cities write for themselves, dedicating either 1% or 2% of construction costs towards art. And it's however the city wants to write it. And I've seen cities say that it's only above grade construction costs. Some say it's below grade and includes sewer and piping. Some cities may include private development on that, where the developer has to donate 1% of his or her fees to public art at that site, but they'll lower that to 0.5% if it's just a cash deposit into the kitty for the commission to put that on another public property, library, city-owned municipal property. There's a lot of ways that people are making this happen. And so I include that because in the Arts and Culture Master Plan, it does mention private sector engagement, and there's the excerpt from that. Joint development, of course, is when both work together. A private building, we've had several private property owners make murals. An example of that would be if the commission wants to dedicate money to what I would call a rotating wall, where we do an RFP for muralists and that wall changes. Like Circus, their 24-hour mural marathon. I think that in part might be funded by their local commission, and they change out those murals every week, even though it's on a private property wall. But it's for the benefit of all the tourism that comes in. Number 6, acquisition of public art. Temporary acquisitions, permanent acquisitions. So there's a great, big difference in what we're going to be seeing in City Hall rotating incoming loans versus what we buy. One, we insure for a set period of time as per our contract. One, we insure long-term as a city-owned asset. Artist eligibility. This is really this is language for a public art panel. And this, again, is more for large purchases of significance. I don't think we would do this for something like the parasols that I purchased, right? But in making this, I have determined that the parasols were purchased over a period of time, and that what I want to do is basically create an inventory of everything that we have, Da Vinci, parasols, and other items I can't think of right now, and then have a value, have a listing, have an inventory. And then that has to be presented to the Board of Supervisors at its value to be insured as an asset. And then that's when it finally becomes a piece of the permanent art collection.
Will that be a record of more temporary placements? For instance, a mural that lasts a month, will there at least be a photographic record?
Well, everything
of
that I put staff time towards, I document. I try to put out on Facebook. I try to, get in front of this board and the public in the newspaper and that sort of stuff. Anything that's on loan, for example, in City Hall or that was here in the lobby, that's documented. Photography, we have paperwork that establishes its, name, title, value. The same thing as what CCI does here and in their other locations. Depending on what it was. I mean, I certainly want to build that art walk component. Work in progress.
So Mark, the wheels are turning, and let's just use Burning Man as an example and artwork that's out on the playa. How would we go about initiating the process of acquisition?
What page is that on?
30.
I think this ties into the Cultural Commission allocation in that budget form. And when we get to maybe the July meeting, the commission can vote on priorities. And taking a look at some of the, bear with me, Chapter 5, accessibility, site capacity, compatibility. I think those will be indicators upon the judgment of what the board wants to recommend. There is Reno has a public art proposal policy. I have not included that in here. I want to include that. I get a lot of people coming to me with ideas. Let me press pause on that and get back to that, because that's why I have this here, to remind myself to speak to that.
Well, and my thought is that being the roundabout is a perfect location for greater than life-size art, which is what's out there. So it's just my thinking. That's all.
So selection is also indicated there as guidelines for our public art panels, and the selection criteria is the same language that we use in judging the redevelopment applications. Artistic merit, clarity of application, demonstrated community support, audience benefit, ability to complete the project. This spells out the process once that panel is convened. And so, as was the case with Da Vinci, depending on what it is and where it is, that's who I pulled together to be there. So for that, because it was here, we had the library, we had property owners across the street, we had residents that lived here. Because it was figurative, we brought in a figurative artist. I think it's also important to bring people from outside our bubble to get fresh perspectives. Business owners, and I believe the language in here was 2 cultural commissioners. You will decide among yourselves who would be put on this public art panel. And mind you, we could get to a point, I hope I have staffing by that time, that we have 2 public art panels going on at the same time. I would chair those meetings. I would not be a vote. When at our next regularly scheduled meeting, those 2 commissioners, it would be upon them to give the remaining commissioners the report upon what the public art panel decision was. And from that, depending on how much it is, that goes to the Board of Supervisors if it's over $49,999.
Yeah.
Finally, there's just some items under the contract. Again, this was really written with that DOT roundabout in mind for a static, durable good. The remaining chapters are going to be copyright, maintenance, which covers inventory, storage, documentation, conservation, cleaning, maintenance. Commissioner McBride, some of the items that you said, the actual registrarial duties of this collection. Deaccession. It's hard to believe that we would mention this when we're starting it, but this is going to be around a lot longer than any of us here. public education, this is something I hadn't seen in other cities, but I want to talk about the city's website, our social media, art map, art walk, signage, local needs assessment. I want to speak, this is going to be the chapter that explains to the public the educational element, how it folds into the day-to-day life, the community vitality. We're going to have the charter, the master plan, my job description in there, and a couple of forms. The forms I'm still a little foggy about, but one of them is going to be, a fixed asset form, which I would be giving to risk management, and that's their hard copy of what it is, picture, how much it's worth. An incoming loan form, which I've worked on with Ben, and that's active. We're going to have, I think, 5 shows by the end of 2019 in City Hall. Public art proposal and waiver form, that's actually a document that the DA has in use already. We haven't used it, but it's already made. Donation forms.
Good.
There could be, donations could come in several forms. Monetary. And of course, that's why I need to talk to finance, where that money goes. I'm learning this process myself. But also, if someone comes up and says, do you want my RV? Static goods and the process for that, and what we want to convene upon, what's reasonable. So on my to-do list for the second half is, and this is a pretty boring form, date, name, address, email, and this is usually the stuff I ask for people when they say, hey, why don't we do something? But proposals have 2 major components here. Who's doing the work and who's paying for it? And I need to evaluate my staff time vis-a-vis those proposals, making sure that, and it could be anything, it could be an event, it could be an object. So that's forthcoming, yeah. I think, for Da Vinci, I think we did a fantastic job. What I want to do is just put those steps in pen and ink. That way, this document is available for my colleagues in the city to understand where they fit in. It's available for the public to understand how their ideas or their organization or their contribution can interface with what we do. And it's the map that we need.
I have a question or two.
Go ahead.
So that I fully understand this public art policy. This is a compilation of what materials? Does the city already have some? Is this a national guide? Is this something you've created? How has this all come together so that we know what we're looking at? In other words, you didn't write this?
Yes, I wrote everything that you see.
You wrote every bit of this?
Yeah.
He needs more money. He really needs.
He's worked really hard.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like-
as I said, that public art policy is specific. It's
Yeah.
custom tailored to every city that I mentioned, and it's based upon those components: population, funding, staffing, geography, political structure, and so all that was taken into consideration. I have to say, I've had a better purview of that under City Hall this past year to make this. I started this under the Visitors Bureau, but I had to redo it. I had to redo it all because I had a greater understanding of how the city's working now.
But how does the reader know from whence it came? That this is your creation, that this is something you've spent time putting together, that this is with the...
Yeah,
Well, it matters in a sense, Sharon, because, it's the work and the time and the effort that's been put into this is
well, I think
amazing.
I'm at this point more involved with Ben on just making sure that this goes through all the checkpoints.
All right.
Just to see what it's going to be at the end. you know?
He
What-
gets to put his name on the title page.
I think you've done a good
And a
job
date.
on,
Good, okay.
from a
that's all I wanted to
logistics standpoint, understanding how the city works and putting that on paper. You've done a really good job of that, the mechanism, how to get there.
know. Yeah.
So it's well done.
Lots of hard work,
And
Mark.
I'm sure it's going to
Has to.
grow when I put it in front of other departments,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, I was stunned
And
when I
then
read it.
I need to
Wow.
speak to Ben about when it comes back to you. I'm a little foggy on that, and this is a new document, so we're taking our time on it.
Clear.
So I have a question. A donation would go through the same panel and the same process.
I believe for donations, I have written here that I would ask them, there's gonna be a donation form, and I would review it. If it's a donation of $100, let's say, I'm not going to put that on our agenda to vote for. If it's of maybe a certain value,
No, I'm
that's,
thinking more of the idea of something from Burning Man that might be very large, and it would require maintenance, and it would require a proper site. So it should have the same type of evaluation
certainly,
as something that we started from scratch.
right.
And maybe there even should be a policy about what types of things we could accept as, or not accept as a donation.
I don't remember what chapter that's in.
Okay, it's in
I did address that, but I think that basically it's like a needs assessment is going to be hand in hand with the actual site compatibility. The asset form I mentioned that I'd be giving to risk management is going to state, it's going to spell out any liability, the insurance value, the maintenance. I mean, one thing that we haven't mentioned, you know, is that larger cities have a percentage of a fraction of a fraction set aside for maintenance. If you're familiar with those whirligigs in Reno, a lot of those got rusted and stopped up, and there was no money to have someone come in and fix them. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, and you know we've been fortunate that any repairs that we have, touch-ups for the abusive winter that we've had, Michelle has been kind enough to do those, you know, at no cost, touching up the color of Da Vinci. But it's what your point is well taken, and I appreciate you acknowledging how serious that consideration is. Because again, we don't want to say yes to everything because my office also serves as storage.
Wow, yeah. No, it's true.
We can't have anything.
But, you know, that's, you know, again, long-term, you know, relying upon Parks and Rec or Public Works to have some available space to store items that don't need climate control.
Well, I think the alignment of the departments looking at this is an important key because each can contribute in some way, shape, or form.
Excellent work.
Mark, I just have a couple of typos to point out.
Yes, oh, please,
too.
yeah. Let me,
Really quickly.
give me 1 second. 1 second to,
21,
Page 21.
21.
okay, if you could just call it by the number in the right-hand corner.
So page 21,
Yes.
first paragraph.
Uh-huh.
Second to last line, via vis, it should be vis-a-vis. Okay. Page 23, last paragraph.
Yes.
Second line, consisting of 2 cultural commissioner members, just take off the
Page 23?
off the end of cultural commission. Or make it 2 cultural commissioners,
Can you
one or
tell-
the other.
Can you tell me what line that is again?
I'm sorry, second line, last paragraph on page 23.
Public art panel.
Public art panel demonstrates commitment.
Number 2.
Consisting of
Oh,
2
okay, I see it.
cultural commission members or cultural
Commissioners.
commissioners.
Yep.
But not
Oh, yeah.
both.
Oh, right.
Okay. And then on, I think you mentioned that budget, that fiscal amount that needs to go in front of the Board of Supervisors is 49,999. You just have 49,000 on the top of page 30, so you just need to fix that.
Thank you.
Last line, first paragraph. That's it?
Yep. You're so good at that. I'm just blown away. Yeah.
I think this would be a good time for public comment on it, and then we
Yes.
can move to the next
Yes.
agenda item.
Public comments? Anyone want to respond to what you've heard about the first 6 chapters? Anything you want to? Yeah, they're all sitting there with smiles, so let's move along. 5C is the presentation and discussion of a celebrate culture.
So, at our January 14th meeting,
Mark, before
Yes.
we
Oh, yes.
before we jump in
Yeah.
on the presentation on this one, let me jump in. First, it's a pleasure to meet. Let me digress. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. I'm sorry for the confusion on the deputy DA's part, but we will always have someone here for you. As to this particular item, Mark mentioned to me that some of the commissioners may have conflicts on this particular item. And so we need to identify those and, if necessary, just note on the record that the commissioners won't be participating in this particular item.
I'm one of the people who has a conflict, and I want to know, may I stay up here and listen to the discussion, or should I?
No, absolutely. You can stay in your seat and listen to the discussion, but you simply can't participate
Okay.
in the
I'm
discussion.
on the board of at least 2 organizations that have applied or will apply for these grants.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for disclosing that.
well, their organization has not applied for this grant because the grant isn't not in existence, but
Right.
We're lucky enough to have a lot of creative commissioners who contribute to
Yeah,
the.
and just to identify the particular, ethics concern, the public ethics law does indicate that if you are either yourself or a member of a business or or a member of a board and have some interest in a possible grant, in this case applying for the grant, then we shouldn't, those commissioners should not participate in setting the parameters or the criteria of acceptance for the grant and that sort of thing. And Commissioner Ramirez, do I understand that you're the other person, or no?
I did not submit anything.
Okay.
Yes, in the future, excuse me, in the future I will.
In the future for this particular grant or a different grant?
Different grant.
Okay.
Yes.
If it's not this particular grant, then there's no conflict.
Thank you for that. Back in January, I brought up the idea to, in order for more transparency and to charge the commission with greater responsibility, that instead of the incoming requests that I got in my office for partnerships on very ethnic-centric cultural events, that I would put it in front or develop guidelines and a grant application form so that goes in front of the commission, just like the redevelopment applicants do. And so I would just want to make more work for you and less work for me, just for the record. But also, put together a process of understandability for the applicants, a calendar, and the Arts and Culture Master Plan states, and I'm quoting here, shall support multicultural diversity of art, heritage, and cultural traditions, which include African American, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, and other ethnic and folk expressions of culture alongside traditional Eurocentric art forms. So I think this is going to be, I think this is a very exciting component of what we could do. I have, since I started my position here, have supported both with my staff time and with funding, cultural events such as Nevada Day Powwow, the Day of the Dead celebration at the Nevada State Museum, Polynesian Lay Day, which is going to be next week at the State Museum. But I did not want to get, with the development of this board, did not want to get in the practice of doing that. Wanted to put it in front of you. It's an important part of what we do. It's an important part of the Arts and Culture Master Plan, and I want those applicants to come before you. So here we have some guidelines in an application form. Applicants can be either an organization or an individual. Again, let me backtrack. This line item was in your allocation for $8,000 for this next fiscal year. And so this spells out the board's ability to allocate that money, to roll it forward, to, if for some reason we didn't have any applicants, that you can put that into another line item, you can roll it forward. If someone defaults or doesn't follow through, or they have, I'm sorry, not that, but they have a balance that they haven't used, these are refundable, these are reimbursable costs. And this is all spelled out here. They're not getting a check, coming in here and walking out with a check. They do the event, they fill out a W-9, and they submit their invoice to me. Payment then is issued by the city at least 30 days later. But it also charges them with doing a final report where we can see some pictures, we can see some stats, we can grow the stats that we're collecting. The major logistical issue was, and it uses the same scoring criteria as a redevelopment. The main issue here from a staffing issue was when we do this. I would like to have this going July 1st of this year, running 1920 fiscal year. However, what I'm proposing here, and I highlighted in yellow on your sheets here, is that this fiscal year be a rolling application where the applicant submits, they consult me before starting the grant process. They submit their grant application approximately 10 weeks before the event. That's their application, their video, any pictures, their data, for me to put on one of our regular scheduled meetings, and that they come here, and that the board here operates with that 8,000 in mind as people come in, how much they're going to allocate. We do that for this first year. Then come next fiscal year, everyone comes in at once, just as we do redevelopment. See, redevelopment, we don't do on a rolling basis. All the applicants come at once. We have that 25,000, and we score it all in one night. I propose, looking at this calendar, that any edits, suggestions that you have here, we can again bring for discussion and possible action at our next regular meeting in May. If it is approved, theoretically, it would open July 1, so, which would mean in February of 2020, you're with me, right, 2020, that's when I promote, say, hey, Carson City, and we have a brand new grant and our redevelopment all due in April. And then come May at a regular meeting, both groups come in.
So we're going to have to schedule a full day?
Well, this is for discussion because I don't know. I think a rolling application is going to be a hassle.
It is.
And so I'm trying to figure out what, and this is where I need your input. Is this a special meeting? Do we keep our redevelopment in May, let's say, and we hold a special meeting in April to do cultural grants? You tell me, but.
Well, or maybe 6 months apart, like September or something. I don't know.
Well, see, we're making the money available on a fiscal calendar.
Right.
So we would want
It to be before.
applicants coming forward as of July 1. I mean, they're events, sorry, they're events. And then there is going to be a minor hiccup in this because, well, just as redevelopment, we're scoring redevelopment applications at our next meeting. There are some organizations that have year-long programming, right? And so they might have an event that occurs June 29th of that fiscal year. Do you see what I mean? So they might be applying but not having completed. They might be applying for an event for next fiscal year, but still be in the process of completing their grant of the active fiscal year. Paperwork.
I don't know if that matters. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I don't have any problem with it. I mean, I think that future recommendations would be based upon the completion of.
Wrong with the funds coming available in July. And so we meet in July and our next meeting is September.
Yes.
September, they submit.
What about events that applicants might have in July? Are you saying that we would review applicants in September? Yeah.
After this year,
Oh, okay.
that will change, and they will be prepared to apply.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that that if we allocate $8,000 for this fiscal year, we would accept applications in September for events from September to June 30.
I have some concerns about doing it on an annual basis because I feel like this particular fund could be used for much smaller projects or for an individual artist doing
Yes, it's for individuals or
a
organizations.
temporary show for a couple of weeks. And I'm afraid that if we're asking for annual submissions, that a lot of people are going to miss the boat. They're not even going to know when their exhibit in November is going to take place. I mean, I probably would be surprised how far in advance artists do know where they're going to be showing. But I just, like, for the smaller projects, for the smaller, or the individuals that are going to do a pop-up performance at McFadden Plaza or whatever,
Right.
they may not know in May what they're
I
going to be
totally
doing.
understand, and there was an
next
opportunity
summer.
where the Russian quartet was in town, and we picked them up very last minute, and they were a major key component of that Arts Advocacy Day. And I think that would be,
But
they
we
could
don't
apply
want to
this.
do this every meeting either.
True. And I don't want to be in the
So
habit of, frankly speaking, chasing down applicants to
Maybe 3
get
times a year
everything
or
in a
something.
PDF so I can put it in Granicus. So it's open meeting. So, again, this is something that we could, if everyone wants to go home and think about for our next meeting, we can bring it up again. But it's a logistical concern. I think I would understand that the commission is in agreement that this is something that they want to do with that amount of money, that I think all of us see the importance of it. But it's just the logistics. Am I understanding this correctly? Okay.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I think.
On
let's
my end too, it's the
calendar
logistics.
it for the retreat as a discussion item to see what we want to do and think about it between now and the time that.
I'd rather have it more formally
formal?
placed on the agendas for our
right.
meetings here because we still don't have a date or anything for the
Yeah.
retreat.
Yeah.
So I'm hesitant to table things to that because we don't
Okay.
even know when that is. And if Mark's talking about starting something after July 1 budget, the 1920 budget starts in July. Maybe we can.
It's larger organizations that are going to have this on their calendar. It's going to be Stewart Indian. It's going to be the Nevada State Museum. It's going to be the Nevada Day Powwow. And I do want to open this up for individuals, and sometimes those opportunities are more last minute, I guess, in comparison to those larger calendars. So is it twice a year? I don't know. So if I could get the commission's thoughts on this, it would really help me, because I've pushed this as far as I can do alone, and I need some thoughts on that. I also have the application in there in the final report, and I want to everyone take a look at page 38, number 6 and number 7. These were, again, I'm trying to gather statistics, and I'm trying to show the ROI on our investment, and I want to make sure that that these statistics are recognized by the applicant, that the applicants can sort of look at themselves and see, oh, you know what, we are not getting any 36 to 64-year-olds, just as an example, and how they might be able to market or pivot to grow their greater audience. So I question number 6 and question number 7, I wanted to get some feedback on whether they should be included in this, whether they shouldn't be included. I think if one holds a Day of the Dead celebration, I think it'd be interesting. I think we want to know how many, is it reaching out to the Hispanic, the Mexican community? And what age?
I think, having sat on the CTA board, it's important that you have these statistics. And, how many people have come from out of town to attend?
Okay.
Because that's the meaningful data that they utilize to think about funding.
And, I realize that it's all, I've done it myself, to hold the event and then try to document it is difficult to do. And if this is an individual, let's say, how that individual is tasked to do that. And if I like the zip code idea a lot, but how they get the information, I think we have to think about. Are they passing out flyers? Are they?
They do a survey for whatever it is. There's just, we had a plant sale at the Greenhouse Project. The AmeriCorps, one of our AmeriCorps took it upon themselves to do a survey of what needs to be changed.
Do you think the survey should be written by this office, and we give copies of that survey to every applicant, maybe?
I think it's a good way to do it. That way you get consistent responses. But I think that would be a great way to do it. And the way we did it, it was linked to a raffle.
Oh.
You got a free T-shirt, so.
Milo, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I was about to chime in with that same exact idea, that perhaps we should know how it's being surveyed, especially with contentious definitions and words about race and ethnicity that might get confusing if people say they have you know what I mean. And I think it's a really important addition, specifically so that we don't end up solely participating in events that happen to be all virtually all white audience, or something where we're not engaging outside communities. The diversity, I think, is an important aspect of what brings people into these kinds of events.
And I want to be, thank you, and I want to be cognizant of the applicant, the organization, or the individual walking up to their audience and saying, "Excuse me."
Yeah, are you cooking? Oh. That is a no-no.
Maybe just something sitting on the table, or a little not super aggressive, but if they could maybe ask, hey, if you'd like to do us a favor and take the survey. The raffle idea is interesting, but that would have to be something that I think they do on their own.
It would, but I will tell you, the approach this weekend was great. One gal just sat there and said, "Would you mind filling out this survey? And oh, by the way, I'll put you in for the raffle by filling this out." And everyone filled out a survey form.
Well, let me ask a question. Our redevelopment applicants, I'm always urging them, invite the members on RAC, invite our board of supervisors, invite our cultural commissioners, invite the CTA. Because I know that when I've applied for grants in Queens, that we had to invite someone from the commission, and they had to be there to sort of make sure we were doing the work. Do you think that there's room for the commission, a commissioner to attend an event that's funded and to be that person?
Sure,
Definitely.
why not? Yeah.
Way we can participate.
There's 7 of us. Somebody can find
We're
the
helping
time
you.
for everything.
Okay.
We can take turns for sure.
Especially with the scale of our budget, we won't, you know, we're not going to be funding 300 events. It's going to be enough for us to handle.
Okay. So would I be correct in that I can put this on the agenda for discussion, possible action in May, and we'll see where it goes? If we table it, I like the idea of September, but we still need to think about how we can get individuals.
Yeah, let's really push to try and get this all finalized by the July
July.
Okay.
meeting for sure.
So I'm just gonna put it
'Cause
up for-
I
Yeah.
know May may be long, the May
So
meeting
I'll put
may
it
be
for
long.
discussion.
Yeah,
Discussion
we
only
will.
for a future agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give us
Everybody
plenty of
okay with
time to
that?
think about this.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Public comment?
Public comments? Anyone want to add your 2 cents to what we've just discussed? Okay, well, moving on to 5D, which, okay, commissioners, do you have any reports and/or comments? Commissioner Abad.
Concert Under the Stars is coming up. We are going to be enjoying a new venue, which gives a new opportunity for Carson City out at Eagle Valley Golf Course. I will tell you, I have gotten calls from as far away as British Columbia on tickets for this. So it is putting heads in beds, just saying. So I have 14 seats left for Table on the Green. That's it. And I have 4 corporate tents left for sponsorship. For those, you need to contact me at 775-232-8626. And for all other tickets, they're purchased online at carsoncitygreenhouse.org.
Thank you. Milo? Oh, you're thinking?
I'm thinking of just as a side note, our sister city, Silver City, has some public programming going on. Just specifically, the next thing upcoming June 18th, insect petting zoo with Nevada bugs and butterflies. But yeah, I was just interested in mentioning this since now we're sister cities, is do a little cross promotion.
Sure.
Yeah, and these are mainly children and teens events.
Great, thanks.
And if you're personally curious, just you can talk to me, talk to my mother, Quest Lakes, about the specific events coming up.
Lupe?
Okay. I do have an event that we are promoting, and it's the Mother's Day event that we've been talking about. So a committee, a parent committee from Western Nevada College is presenting this event to the community. And as you see, the publicity is in English and in Spanish. And so I brought plenty of publicity for you all to help me promote this event. Basically, the event is going to consist of a 3-course dinner, dessert bar. We're going to have cultural entertainment in hopes that we can draw the diverse community to attend this event. It's going to be an opportunity for our moms to feel pampered and to dress up and feel special, because all moms are special. And so we're hoping that we can get a good turnout. It's going to be at the Nugget. The tickets are $50 a person, and we definitely need them to purchase them in advance because we need to identify what their preference of meal is. So all that information is on the publicity, and I hope that we can spread the word out and promote it. And please join us to this event, because again, it's it's a good way to come together and just enjoy a fun night here in Carson City and have the opportunity to dress up. I think we all like to dress up. I think this would be a fabulous time. And again, we're bringing a diverse group of performers to share their talent with us. We have Commissioner Boogly and the band from the, let's see, members of the Carson City Symphony, a quartet, I believe. They're going to be presenting, they're going to be performing during the cocktail hour, which is 5 to 6. And then from there on, the celebration will take on. So again, we're hoping that we can draw a beautiful community that we have to come together and just enjoy themselves and have a great time. So I'm going to give you guys some flyers to distribute.
Please say again what date that is, Lupe?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So the the event is on May 10th. And by the way, this is a fundraising event. So the proceeds are going to go to students from WNC.
It's wonderful.
So I reached out to the Nevada Indian Commission regarding the the Father's Day powwow, I'm sorry. And I spoke with a Sari Nichols over there regarding what they would need regarding assistance in their event. So one of the things that they were talking about, other than financially, of course, is volunteers. Sherry Rupert, who's the executive director over there, she's actually retiring. So she'll be leaving there by the time that event happens. So usually what she did was that I believe they had a quad that they used to go around and pick up garbage. And they had a little trailer they would tow with it and everything like that. But unfortunately, as she retires, they're not going to have that quad anymore. So if there's anyone out in the public or anywhere else that would be able to help out with that, they are also looking for volunteers for garbage detail for people to go around the event, make sure no one's just dropping off, cartons and, other stuff like that that are on the floor. They're looking as well for any help with bleachers or anything like that. I guess they had something with Parks and Recreation, but they no longer have that, so they don't have bleachers anymore for the event. So there's a couple of different things they were talking about with that, but we're really excited to hear from somebody over here at the commission to be able to kind of ask them some questions and see that there was some interest in what was going on, of course, over there.
Date?
It's for, I think it's on Father's Day, yeah, correct.
Father's Day.
It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Thank you for looking into that. Of course, there's the, an event like that would be eligible for the Celebrate Culture event. But I'm always interested in knowing, beyond funding, beyond sponsoring a dancer or a performer, how can we help the community? And so I appreciate your efforts in doing that. And I like the idea of, the Cultural Commission assembling volunteers. I really like that.
Yeah.
Our in-kind donation.
Yeah. Well,
It's something we've never
also,
really
if you get
looked
me the
into.
information, I can take it to my local Rotary Club. You got a lot of people who volunteer to do things in this town. So, like Rotary at Work Day, we do that kind of thing.
Right.
So get me the information, I'll take it to the club.
Historically, they are always scrambling for volunteers
Yeah.
up until the last minute. Yeah. So that would be a really big help to them.
You need a quad, huh? I'm gonna talk to my grandson. God, okay. That's it? Well, that was a lot.
Okay, I'll just do April. So the Thursday, April 25th at 6:30 p.m. is a Music is for Life concert. It's by our youth strings, youth choir, and also our adult kind of intermediate strings group, and some parents, grandparents who may play instruments who join in too. And it will be at the community center. And then this will be the second year that they're calling it Music is for Life, because it includes all ages. And then the 28th of April is our symphony concert with Gregory Maytan, the violin concerto by a Swedish woman composer, Amanda Meyer, and music by 2 other women composers and by the husband of one of them. And that will be, one of them is a very amusing piece by a living woman composer called Fanfare for the Family Farm. And it involves some percussion instruments that come from the farm, like milk
Oh, that's
pails.
lovely.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there. We have lots in May. And you'll have to find out by looking at Carson Now or getting on our information list.
Thank you. That's very interesting. And they're wonderful events to attend, so I hope people will. Anyone else? Any future agenda items that you would like to see us consider? Even though we have a lot on our plate? Okay, 5F are the upcoming meetings and events. May the 2nd is the Cultural Commission Annual Report to the Board of Supervisors, and the public is always invited to attend. May 13th, we will have at 5:30, I'm assuming here,
That's a regular meeting, yes.
regular meeting.
And that's going to be that's when the commission's going to be scoring the redevelopment applications. As I did last year, I'm not going to do a director's report in the interest of time. There's going to be a 3-minute limit for each applicant. This year, I'm offering each applicant to do a 1-minute optional excerpt from their event. So whether that's a little dance, a little poetry, a little music, we're going to be indulged 1 minute by each applicant, or they have also the option if they want to give me a DVD, a USB or something like that. So I'm expecting a large audience, and we're going to have some entertainment next meeting.
Do you know how many applications were submitted?
7.
Yeah, I heard 7. And July 8th is at 5:30. A regular meeting will be scheduled here. Now, as we conclude, any public comments and/or discussion, you have a 3-minute limit. Floor is open. It closed. Do I have a possible motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out.